Good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie, and I'm the Senior Organizing Manager here at FairVote Washington. And thank you so much for joining our January roadmap in 2025. Um, just real quickly, I'll go over sort of what tonight will look like, and we'll just get right into it. As you know by now, we are going to use a Q&A feature for all of our questions. So go ahead and drop your questions into the Q&A as the evening progresses, and we will do our best to get to your questions. And um, tonight, what you can expect from this is just an overview of Lobby Day. We have our second annual Lobby Day coming up. It feels both still very new and also like we've never done this before. That's not true. It definitely feels like we've done this before. But we want to go over our bill, how to talk to legislators about it, and then just really what the day looks like. Where do you park? What happens when you walk up to the temple? Who lets you in? All those sorts of things, just so you have a good idea of how this day will go. We just want everyone to feel welcome and excited and prepared and confident coming in to this day. So before we get into all of that, I would like to bring on our Executive Director, Elise Orlick. And I know that Elise wanted to say a couple words to you all tonight as it's the first roadmap of the year. So I will hand over the mic to Elise.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Welcome. If you haven't met me, I am Elise Orlick, the Executive Director of FairVote Washington. We do have a packed agenda for tonight, but before we begin, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge events in the other Washington yesterday, as a new presidential term has begun. In particular, a speaker at one of the inaugural events, a high-profile tech billionaire, twice made a gesture that, for many of us, evoked the fascist regime of Nazi Germany, a symbol of hatred towards many of the communities that make up our society here in Washington. And to top the symbolism off, yesterday was also Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I just want to acknowledge this and say that if any of you are feeling afraid for our democracy in this moment, we want you to know that FairVote Washington is here for you and that we disavow fascism in all of its forms. That symbol that was made is antithetical to our mission to build a representative democracy that works for everyone. And I think it's also important to recognize that in Washington, there's so much room for us to fight back against these messages. Carrie has used the term today that, or used the phrase today that hope is an active word. It's something I really believe, and I don't think any of you would be on this call tonight or planning to attend our lobby day if you didn't agree with us. So thank you for being willing to take action for our democracy. And even when we see efforts that are against that mission, I think that's actually the best time for you to be leaping in, taking action, and building hope for yourselves and your neighbors and everyone in our state. And we can actually look to the memory of Martin Luther King Jr. We should be focused on that model as an example of what hope really looks like. So thank you all again for joining us. And let's talk about what we can do to build a better democracy.
Thank you so much, Elise. I, for one, am really looking forward to the opportunities we have in this legislative session. Legislative session started a week and one day ago. It feels like it could have been a lot longer, but it's not. And I just wanted to get a pulse check with you. What has the reception of our bill been like with legislators in Olympia this year? Oh wait, you're on mute. Hold on.
Thanks. I went off of audio as you were talking, but thank you for reminding me. This is a much happier topic, one I'm really excited to talk about. So the Voices Act was officially filed on Friday, and the response has been really tremendous. So far, we have 28 co-sponsors, which is 6 more than last year. Now, this is a House bill, so 28 co-sponsors is over a quarter of the membership of the House. It really goes to show that our work developing friendships over the years has paid off. And the atmosphere for work around democracy as a whole is also really exciting right now. So another piece of news that I'm really excited about is that this year, FairVote Washington has endorsed about 10 bills that are being led by other organizations, but they all support our mission of a representative democracy that works for all of us. So there's a lot happening around democracy in particular. And I'm really hopeful that we'll see some movement on these bills throughout the session.
That is super exciting. What are, like you mentioned that there's a lot of energy around democracy in Olympia right now.
Mm.
Can you speak to what just the general atmosphere of Olympia is right now? We have a new administration, we have a challenging budget. What can we expect out of this legislative session?
Yeah, well, you hit the two big themes right on the head. Legislative session can always feel like a sprint, and we've told our supporters, be on the lookout for action alerts from us. They could really come in any day. We don't always get a lot of heads up about what day our bill is going to get a hearing, and when other events are going to happen. So the feeling is we've hit the ground running. There's already a lot happening in Olympia. And as you said, the big focus is on revenue. We went over this in our December roadmap as well, but there's a big budget shortfall expected, and that everything that's being discussed in Olympia comes back to our shortfall, to that shortfall. Sorry, not ours. Luckily, the Voices Act has no role in that. There's also, I think, a feeling of a little bit of a fresh start as the new administration is starting. Some legislative offices are still hiring all their staff. So there's a little bit of building the plane as it's flying energy. And of course, the vibe is dependent on which side of the aisle you're working on. One other thing that we're really happy to report is that the last appointments for legislative vacancies actually happened today. There were several vacancies across the state, and they actually all used ranked choice voting to fill those vacancies. So that's a show that ranked choice voting is building steam among political actors across the state. People are trying it out, and they're getting familiar and comfortable with this way of making decisions.
That is really exciting to hear. And I know that in all of the mix of our new administration, both new administrations, with our bill, with our heightened support from our sponsors, we also seem to have more support from coalitions coming in behind us. Can you speak a little bit to our coalition partners?
Yeah. We have a lot of support from coalition partners, and this work is done in communities. That's why we have so many people on the call tonight. And it's been a focus of our work for years to build up our relationships with organizations that have similar values as us. So this year we are really excited. I think we discussed this in December, but we are still just over the moon that the Washington Voting Justice Coalition has chosen the Voices Act as one of their priority bills. That is one of the largest and most well-established democracy coalitions in the state. And it is a real honor to sit alongside some of their other priority legislation to make democracy work well here in Washington. There is another newer democracy coalition, which we are a sponsor for. They have another lobby day coming up after ours. And so we're definitely in support of the work that they're doing and the bills that they are pushing. And you might also, when you're in Olympia with us, you might even see other people from around the state lobbying alongside you. So we know that One America and the Seattle Public Library Foundation are going to have their lobby days on the 5th as well. So it's the people's house. And I think it's very cool that when all of our supporters are in Olympia, they are really going to see that. They're going to see people who care about lots of different issues from across the state.
Yeah, really cool. I know democracy does touch every aspect of life. So it makes sense that we would have support from so many different places and be able to reciprocate our support into different places. So thank you so much.
That's right.
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
on that note, the Voices Act right now, we have support from 12 organizations and coalitions across the state. and that's growing. So all of this partnership is really something that we take pride in. It's something we have the responsibility to reciprocate. And each of the bills that are being considered and being pushed by these different organizations, like I said, it's something that each of them can strengthen our democracy by easing access to voting.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Elise. I really appreciate you taking some time tonight to connect with us all. And now I would really like to talk more about the Washington Voices Act. So I'd like to bring on Stephanie Houghton, who is our legislative director. I call Stephanie lots of names on these panels. You've been a political director, you've been a colleague, you've been lots of things, but today you are a legislative director. And thank you for being here with us, or political consultant. I think I've called you a director. I'm gonna mix up my own words, but thank you for being with us tonight to talk about our bill and Lobby Day and how we can, as active citizens, be really effective at our work to strengthen our democracy in this time. So I'm gonna just jump right into it. Can you tell us about the Washington Voices Act, how it came to be? What does it ask us to do? What does it even stand for? What does it mean?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Stephanie Houghton. I use she, her pronouns. Thank you for that introduction, Carrie. So yes, the WA Voices Act, Washington Voices Act. I'm going to read to you to make sure that I get it right, but it is a pretty self-explanatory title. So voices, great start, right? We're trying to raise all voices here. Like that is not a mystery. It actually does stand for something though. In addition to standing for everything. We're looking for voting options, implementation, compliance, education to be standardized. So, and standards. So, in 2023, the Washington State Supreme Court ruled that ranked choice voting is an appropriate fix to any Washington Voting Rights Act violations. So that means if you've got a violation to the Voting Rights Act happening in your community, you can, through the courts, sue and say, I'd like to fix this problem by using ranked choice voting. And what that means is that essentially anyone can just start doing that now. And look, I love ranked choice voting. I'm here for ranked choice voting. We're all here for ranked choice voting. We're also here though because we want ranked choice voting to go well. We have all seen examples of where a new kind of election system, whether it's ranked choice voting or not, has been tough to implement for some reason or another. Either counties or auditors are not empowered properly, perhaps they're not funded, perhaps they are not given proper materials to educate voters. We know voter education is incredibly important. Any of those things can result in elections not going smoothly, which means that the results are not they're not what they need to be, right? Like they're not elected officials are not chosen by well-informed voters. The system goes a little berserk, and like that's just not what we're looking for. We do not want chaos. We've all seen chaos at some level or another, whether you're talking about school boards or you're talking about the national political scene. We don't want chaos, which means this voting, the Washington Voices Act establishes establishes guidelines so that we don't have that chaos. So that if you want to start using ranked choice voting and you see that there is a Washington Voting Rights Act violation happening in your community, there are also some guidelines for how to actually implement ranked choice voting. That's what this does. That's what this bill does. It provides guidelines for people who want to start using ranked choice voting in their community. It asks the Secretary of State to come up with those guidelines. We think that it's a pretty a pretty good ask at this point, since technically speaking, folks could just start using ranked choice voting without any guidelines. But it's nothing is easy down in Olympia, as we all know. So
As all too well, all too well. Um, thank you for explaining the Washington Voices Act. I think it is a bill that it's so necessary. It feels like bumper lanes. Like if you're gonna try to go bowling, like I don't know how old I was until I could bowl without bumpers. It was a while. And with these baby democracies, with a baby version of a voting method, then it would be difficult. So we would like to put some support around um, towns and municipalities, especially not every municipality has the resources to
totally.
be able to do this well. And that is no fault of their own. And that gets into a whole slew of other challenges, but it is the reality we're dealing with. So I know I get excited about this. As we're talking to our legislators about this, I think it can feel very simple. Like I hear this and I go, oh yeah, no chaos. That seems really great. But how would you go about communicating to a legislator about this and striking the balance of telling your own story about why you chose to get up at 4 in the morning to drive to Olympia with the urgency and need of this bill?
Sure.
I know, really
So
easy question.
yeah, I'll just hop right in there.
Yeah.
There are a lot of reasons that we're on this call. There are over 60 of us on this call. There are probably over 100 reasons that we're on this call, right? I don't think that we should be hiding the ball, right? I think the first thing is to acknowledge, look, I'm here because I'm a supporter of ranked choice voting. I support ranked choice voting because I think that it opens the doors to more candidates, more diverse candidates running and having an actual shot at success. That's why I'm here. I'm not going to pretend that it is something else. What I'm also going to do, though, is say really quick, I'm going to reference my talking point sheet and I'm going to say in Portugal versus Franklin County in 2023, the Washington State Supreme Court said we can use ranked choice voting to remedy Voting Rights Act violations here. They said that. That's it. That's the rule. It was unanimous. That's the end of the conversation. And so what I'm asking for is help making sure that the implementation goes smoothly when inevitably it comes to Washington. Let's get our hands around this. Let's think about this strategically, because the last thing I want is disenfranchised voters. And the last thing that you legislators sitting in front of me want is disenfranchised voters. So this is my way of saying, this is our way of saying, like, this is already happening. It's now up to you guys to make sure that it happens well. The ball is in your court. I'm not going to pretend I don't like this particular ball, but it's in your court. Let's work on this together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really appreciate that. And I know I'm thinking of everybody who signed up to our lobby day right now. We have people from 36 unique legislative districts, 36 out of 49. That's 70%. And if you know anybody in Spokane, please get them to come, because that would take us to 37 LDs, which would be 3/4 of the state, which would be really exciting. So just keep that in mind. But as we're talking with legislators from 36 unique legislative districts, those are legislators representing unique problems with unique political perspective, with different challenges at their local level and at their federal level. And we are entering a conglomerate of who even knows what. Hopefully the people who live in those districts know what. But we can also anticipate some pushback. We can anticipate some big excitement. We have 28 sponsors. That's over half of the votes we would need to get it out of the House in the first place. So that's huge. So we know we have some big support, but we also know that we have some opposition. Do you have a sense of what some of the common pushback we get is and how to tackle that?
Yeah. So the first thing that I'll say is I have had meetings with legislators like constantly. Not just about this, about many, many things, right? there are very, very, very vanishingly small numbers of legislators who are going to want to pick a fight with a constituent who walks into their office. So I just want to like allay folks' fears that like that is going to happen to them. It's basically like, so I just want to say that. Now, there are folks who I already know are going to say, well, I heard, da, 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 fill in the blank. And I can't tell you exactly what they're going to say. They could say something like, I heard that ranked choice voting is confusing. I heard that voters are confused. And I would acknowledge that and say, okay, I have heard that there has been some confusion with many election systems. What we're actually asking for, though, are standards so that we're limiting confusion. I'm happy to talk about how many people don't find ranked choice voting confusing, but in the end, what the Law Voices Act is asking for is prevention of confusion. So if that's their pushback, then that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to set up standards. It's right there in the name.
It's true. That final word.
The final word, standards. Voice says, right?
Yeah.
It's plural. So the standards.
Plural voices.
Plural voices. So
all of them.
All of them.
Collective.
So I think that there's that part. And I think you can just keep coming back to like ranked choice voting's already been okayed by the Supreme Court. I'm not here to tell you that you need to like ranked choice voting. I'm here to tell you that we are trying to put together education standards so that we can empower auditors to run good elections and we can empower voters to be well informed. That's what we're really pushing for here. Now, like Carrie mentioned, there are budget challenges, to say the least, happening in Olympia and our state right now. This is a way to make it so that a single entity, the Secretary of State's office, is putting together standards so that it's not up to all of these auditors across the state who are very good at their jobs, but that does take resources. If we could spend those resources on one office, that's actually a more efficient use of time and resources. So I do think that pushback is likely to come toward ranked choice voting as opposed to the WA Voices Act. And I would invite you to just go back to that WA Voices Act, cling to that WA Voices Act, because we're all here because we love ranked choice voting. I think we're also here because we don't like chaos. And if we can just talk about those two things, that will make an impression. That will make an impression.
I like that. I think that feels very doable, especially coming back to the Washington Supreme Court case. Like, we're not trying to argue with the Washington State Supreme Court.
No, I am not on that particular court, or any court at all. So like coming to me with problems against that, like that's just not going to help you.
I'm the wrong person.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and deflect that.
Yeah, exactly.
You can take it to the voters next time.
Yeah.
That is really helpful. Thank you so much. We are getting a bunch of questions from the audience, and so I want to take a moment to ask you some of them from our resident expert. Pam Tracy wants to know if we have any Republican co-sponsors.
We do not have any Republican co-sponsors.
I know we used to, do we have a sense of like where they went? Because I know it's not for lack of us trying. I know that. So.
We would have welcomed them, to be very clear. Like this is a process of like, these are published and we have to go recruit people, but also any of the legislators, any of the House representatives are able to sign on. We are not avoiding them, just to be super, super clear. Where did they go? Well, honestly, they'd have to answer our calls to tell us where they went. And they are not as open to those conversations, or they haven't been. I don't want to say right now that they wouldn't be. We have had some really good Republican support, especially because this really is a local and optional bill. And it really returns local control to jurisdictions that right now are required to have a certain kind of election. So we've had some really good conversations with our Republican representatives. it's not for lack of trying. I think it is, I think it's, I think it is hard for Republicans right now to buck their party without losing their seat. And that's a hard conversation for them to be having internally. And going back to what Elise was saying earlier, I don't have a lot of sympathy with what's happening right now personally, but I will say that we would welcome Republican support of our Wall Voices Act. It's an anti-chaos bill.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for the question, Pam. Well, you asked if there are any Republican co-sponsors, and I asked where did they all go, and I am I am still wondering where they all went. But thank you for your question. I'm just going to rattle down a couple of these. Wendy Williams, you're asking where can we see who the sponsors are? You can see them on the Wall Edge website, and I think one of my colleagues will probably drop a link to it in the chat. You'll also get an email from us tomorrow with more information about our bill and the sponsors and all the good things. Likewise, Neil's asking if we can send a list of all the bills that we're supporting. Yes, it is already written. You will get it in your inbox tomorrow morning. Thank you. Chris Mason is talking about the lobby day that the Democracy Coalition is hosting the week after ours, and is wondering if we are involved in it, and should our supporters attend both? Stephanie, I am so sorry. I barely have a question for you yet, but I'm going to take this one too. Hi, Chris. Yes, thank you for your question. Yes, we are definitely involved in it. One of our bill is included, I believe, in the bills we're advocating for that day. Yes, please attend. If you can only pick one, please come to the Washington Voices Act Lobby Day. Definitely prioritize that, see how you feel. And if you feel like coming back to Olympia a week later, I will be there. I know my colleague Neela will be there, but we ask that you prioritize the Washington Voices Act Lobby Day. All right, here's a question for you, Stephanie. Our volunteer, Eric Bidstrup, wants to know if there's been any opposition to HB 1448, i.e. the Washington Voices Act so far.
Well, the bill hasn't existed long enough for anyone to officially have expressed any problems with it. But this is not the first time we filed it, and the Secretary of State did testify against passing the bill last year. His testimony was focused mainly on not supporting ranked choice voting. And did not, he has concerns about, he has concerns around voter education, specifically English language learners and people with developmental disabilities being able to understand how they're voting. We share those concerns with the Secretary of State and are actually advocating in this bill for specific work to be done around those two groups to make sure, again, that no one is disenfranchised. The Secretary of State has, like I said, not said anything about this year's bill yet. But we do know that that's been his pushback in the past. Again, I think it's worth noting that the Secretary of State is coming from a good place, which is we want to make sure everyone's vote counts and everyone knows what happens as soon as they fill out their ballot and it gets sent away. We want to make sure that that's really deeply ingrained. To us, this supports that, and that's the work that we are doing. The Secretary of State, I don't know if he doesn't agree or hasn't come around to that way of thinking about it, but he has in the past pushed back. So we're trying to work with him, and we're trying to make sure that we are addressing his concerns with our legislation and working closely with our sponsors on that. I can't sit here and pretend that it's going to go through and everything's going to be fine. But I can say that we're trying our best to be as responsive as we can be, because his concerns are ones that should be addressed intentionally.
It's true. And it's been really interesting because as far as we can tell, his specific concerns haven't been brought up in any other municipality or state that uses ranked choice voting. So it can feel sticky, and but it's also a really exciting opportunity to say, yeah, nobody's looked at this and maybe we should. And how do we do that? And how can Washington not only bring ranked choice voting and do it well, but do it the best? Washington has been a leader in democracy for a really long time, and I think we should stay that way. I love living in a state that loves democracy, and that makes me really excited. Um, Kind of leapfrogging off of that, we have a question from Nathan who is asking if we have any specific guidelines that HB 1448 outlines. Like, is there anything specific we outline in the Washington Voices Act for our guideline requirements? Or
Oh,
what guidelines are we setting?
we're trying to set up who is on a committee to make the guidelines. We aren't even trying to set those up in particular, but we are saying that research has to be done. There has to be actual work within communities, and with communities need to be represented while building while building the guidelines, because we recognize FairVote Washington recognizes that we are a small but mighty group. We are not people who can necessarily jump in and say, great, we have all of the answers. We know exactly who needs to be on the committee. We know exactly what education needs to look like. We are experts, and we can learn a lot from how it's been implemented in other places, like in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and even in New York City. But in the end, more people at that table is better. And those are the kind of guidelines that we're really interested in setting up.
Really cool. I think it's smart, and it's a helpful thing because legislators themselves don't need to necessarily have final say in each one of those specific final guidelines, only because we ask legislators to be experts in a variety of different topics. 3,000 bills get introduced during every legislative session, only 200 to 300 pass. That's a lot of different topics to become expert in. And so this bill really goes further and says, let's go straight to the experts and really bring in that support that is going to have a lasting positive impact on elections in Washington. We have an anonymous question asking if the Washington Voices Act goes further than to remedy the Voting Rights Act violations. For example, could a municipality use the Washington Voices Act to implement ranked choice voting without a Washington Voting Rights Act violation?
Yes. Yes, it could. It would. That's up to the local jurisdictions on how they want to do that. If they want to, as Seattle did, put it to voters, if a city council or a county council or someone wants to put it to voters, it's up to them how they choose to do that. That can be brought by a voter to put in front of other voters. It can be brought by the council, but that's really jurisdiction dependent.
Fair enough. Thank you so much. I think we have time for one more question. There's somebody who would like a little bit more information about what the Washington Voting Rights Act does and what violations we could be speaking to. So maybe we can talk a little bit about Portugal v. Franklin.
Sure. So the Washington Voting Rights Act and the National Voting Rights Act, which is systematically being hollowed out now, these are pieces of legislation that are meant to make it so that when a voter casts a ballot, first of all, they're able to cast that ballot. They're able to go to their polling place, or they are going to get something in the mail. They are able to do that. So we make sure that it's translated into different languages, etc. That's the first bar. The second one is that those votes actually count. So that's where we're getting into like voter intent and making sure that, gerrymandering doesn't go totally off the rails. things like that, because in the end, all of those pieces add up to when voters voted, did their votes count the way those voters wanted them to count? So if you're looking at gerrymandered lines, or you're looking at a weird ballot setup that has caused actual confusion, I'm looking at you, Florida in 2000, right? Like if those things are happening, those are Voting Rights Act violations, because you have violated someone's right to vote, either by stopping them from voting altogether, making it really hard for them to vote by not translating it into the language that they need it translated into, or you're making it so that, like, oh well, we've made this so that this particular district is already drawn up this way, so oh well, your vote didn't count, even though there were more of you kind of actually asking for this other person in the end. So all of those violations, all of those would be potential violations under the Voting Rights Act, under the Washington Voting Rights Act, and ranked choice voting can solve some of those. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but what I do know is that ranked choice voting makes it so that people can vote with their whole selves. So if there are any sort of if there are any sort of violations happening as far as like where the lines are drawn, ranked choice voting can really help to nullify those.
That sounds good to me. If I'm being honest, I'm also not a lawyer, nor do I want to be one. That is a specific goal I have in my life.
True. Yeah, same.
No, thank you so much, Stephanie. Really appreciate you taking the time to come and join us tonight and tell us about the Washington Voices Act. I know I'm really excited for Lobby Day. I know our message of anti-chaos has really been landing with the legislators we've been able to connect with. And so having you all from most of the state, I think I can confidently say most of the state, come to Olympia to tell your legislators that as well is really powerful. And Stephanie will be there the morning of Lobby Day to give you this message again. So if you forget, don't worry. We will be there with coffee and Stephanie to remind you. And we will be there all day to hear how it goes and all of the rest. So I am going to say thank you and good night to Stephanie. And I am going to chatter about what the Lobby Day itself actually looks like. And Natalie, if you want to come join me, I'd love for you to be here with me to help answer any questions that I might be missing, or if there's things am not mentioning, please jump in and correct me. And
I'm sure I won't
Phil,
have to. I might as well stay on mute, you know.
I want to be sure about that. Thank you. For all of you who don't know, this is Natalie, our organizer.
The Morganizer, you know.
The one and only, the one and only. We're very grateful to have Natalie on our team. So thank you, Natalie. So I'm just going to start with like a really basic rundown of the day, and I hope it's basic, and I'm happy to go into more details as they come. Feel free to put your questions in the Q&A if questions arise as I'm chatting. So first and foremost, you have to get to Olympia. All of you who are signed up are probably, you're here probably because you signed up. Probably have been getting emails from Natalie that have a carpool link in them. That link is awesome. It's a really fun website that lets you either start a carpool or join a carpool. So go ahead and look there to see if there's somebody from your neighborhood that you want to ride with or could use a ride. And if neither exist and you need some support, please reach out to us. We try to make ourselves available. You can also take the train down. There is no public transportation from the train to the state capitol. I really couldn't tell you why. It makes me very sad, but the train is an option. And please feel free to connect with us about getting to and from the train. I know last year we did some rides to and from the train for folks. If you want to get there the evening before, there are hotels in Olympia, and we're also working with local volunteers on supporter housing. So if you're not really in the mood to shell out, a couple $100 at the Hilton, I know, would be very graciously welcomed by our local volunteers. So again, please just reach out, let us know, so we can connect you. once you're there, it's the morning, you've driven down, you've taken the train in, you'll need to park your car. There is only parking for folks with accessibility needs. So if you are not in a wheelchair, have an ADA requirement, please park on the street. There's a lot of street parking in Olympia. That's one thing they somehow do really, really well there. And all around the temple is 9-hour parking. So you'll be able to just set it and forget it for the entire day. We recommend downloading an app called Pay by Phone. Makes your life a little bit easier. But if you're old school and want to use your quarters, or like middle school, I guess, you can use a credit card, I'm pretty sure, with those with those phone the pay stalls. Okay, so you park. You're at Temple Beth Hatfiloh. We were not there last year. We were at the United Churches of Olympia, so it's a little bit different, a little bit further away, but it's a beautiful facility. I'm really looking forward to everyone seeing it. When you get there, you will have to come through a gate, and then we will let you in through a locked door. There is heightened security because it is a Jewish temple, and there have been some terror acts against the Jewish community in the past, like I'm thinking back to 2018. And so they have heightened security, but it actually makes for a very friendly welcome, because someone will be there to say hi to you and point you. It could be Natalie. It could be it could be anybody.
Could be one of
honestly.
you. Yeah,
It could
probably
be one
is
of
one
you.
of you. Yeah.
That's exactly it. So somebody will be there to welcome you and kind of point you towards the coffee. You'll hear us, you'll smell the coffee, you'll smell the the muffins. You'll come in, you'll get your folders, check in, and you'll also be asked to sign a video release form. We have an awesome volunteer. She's fresh out of college, and she makes documentaries, and she has offered to come take some videos of the day and take some pictures of the day. And we would likely use these for our website, possibly social media. And just to make sure everybody is aware and comfortable, we have a little video release form just acknowledging that this is going on. So just wanted to give you all a heads up about that. Okay, next, you have your folder, you have your name tag, you've checked in, you've signed a form. Woof, okay, now it's time to go get coffee. Thank God. So we will have coffee and tea and light refreshments. So we'll have muffins and granola bars and some fruit and things like that. Please help yourself. Those will be there all day. We will not have any meat products because meat is not allowed in the temple. So of course, we're being respectful of that. Ask from the temple staff, but do go help yourself, plan to help yourself. And then it'll be time to sit down. All throughout the room, we will have numbers of legislative districts set out on tables and by walls and different things. We probably won't have enough tables for every legislative district to have its own table, so there might be groupings. Do your best. I would recommend to do your best to sit down at your legislative district. You'll know what your LD is because it'll be on the folder that we give you. And you probably know ahead of time as well, but it'll be on the folder that we give you as well. So you can go ahead and sit down, relax. And the rest of the day kind of goes from there. You'll be meeting people who are in your legislative district. Those are the people who you're going to be going to meetings with. And so it'll be fun to get to know them. Where are they from? Maybe you already carpooled there together and you already know all of those things, but then you can meet the people from the LD next door. We will do an orientation in the morning to, again, go over our bill, get everybody comfortable with what's going on. And then we'll send you on your way. There will be some people who have meetings starting at 8:45 in the morning. Sometimes even earlier, you'll hear from us if that's the case, so we can make sure you're feeling excited and confident going into your meetings, since you likely won't be able to get the full prep message from us the morning of, but you'll go on your way. You'll go have your meetings. I'm going to circle back to what those meetings again are like. We've heard a little bit about that, but between meetings, well, okay, let's talk about getting to the meeting. Please stop me if I'm rambling. But To get to your meeting, it's about a 10 to 12-minute walk to the Capitol. It's a really nice walk. It goes really quickly. Olympia is a really beautiful city to walk around, in my opinion. You'll have your room number and the building that you're going to. I'd recommend getting there like 10-ish minutes early. So leaving about 20, 30 minutes before your meeting just to make sure you have time and can get checked in and not feel rushed is always nice. You'll have your meetings. They are all 15 minutes. That's very standard for legislative meetings. So they go pretty quickly. It's a really fun time to get to know your legislator. They are disarmingly normal when you're in a room with them. They are people that ran for office and were elected. And it's a really nice time just to get to know them as your neighbors, in addition to advocating for our legislation. Between meetings, you might have time to come back to the temple. You might decide to hang out on campus throughout the day, and meet us there for the rally. That is completely up to you. The only things that we really need you to be at are your meetings. And we'd love to have you in the morning for our orientation, and we'd love to have you at our rally, which is at 3:30 in the afternoon on the Capitol steps. We're working on finalizing our speakers, but they should be, we're excited to announce those when we're ready. If you happen to have a wide span of time where you are unoccupied by meetings, we never want you to be bored and always want to have something interesting for you to learn. So in the morning, we will have a breakout session with 2 candidates who ran for office in 2024 and had, I would say, subpar experiences. And they're here to talk about what it was like to run, what was good about running in the system, but also why they would be so excited to run using ranked choice voting. We talk a lot about ranked choice voting from the perspective of a voter. And so to get to hear it from the perspective of a candidate is, I hope, a really exciting and interesting perspective to gain. Similarly, in the afternoon, we will have a presentation on proportional ranked choice voting, which in our mind is sort of the gold standard of really great representation. Ranked choice voting is amazing. It is still a winner-take-all system, and so moving into proportional representation is an even more representative and even more stable form of government. So we'll be excited to share that with any of you who we haven't been able to share it with yet. Whew. Okay. In between those 2 breakout sessions is lunchtime. We are not providing lunch. Last year we had volunteers who just went for it with our snacks, and that's what they ate for the day. You are welcome to do that. We have also provided a great list of local restaurants. Olympia has a lot of fun food. Just again, if you get anything with meat, we ask that you finish it before you bring it back into the temple. Maybe, or put it in your car or wherever. So that is, I think that's the day. What did I miss, Natalie?
I think you nailed it all. I mean, you're the one that wrote the agenda, and it
That's
shows,
true.
you know your stuff. I would just add, yeah, it definitely will be a fun time. My experience getting any of us ranked choice voting supporters together is it's so great. We're not only volunteering our time, we're volunteering our time for like electoral reform, and that's like a very special group of people. So all the great work we'll be doing, we'll be having fun doing it together too, is what I would say.
It's so true. After I helped host our first lobby day last year, I got to go to somebody else's lobby day for a completely different topic, and I had so much fun. I really did. It was just such a unique type of day to get to be around people I had never met who had some shared experiences and were like-minded in ways that I don't always get to come across in my day-to-day life, and kind of talk politics together and talk life experiences together. And it was just really special. So I'm really excited for you all to get to experience this again. And also just thank you so much for being part of this. Our work genuinely cannot happen without you. And I know that that can sound like cheesy and trite, but it's true. And so we really just appreciate you being there. I am going to look through a couple of these questions and see what I can answer, but I'm seeing a question from Robert who wants to know how he should dress for Olympia. And Natalie, do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay, I did go on mute. I think that we say, dress the term professionally, I think, can mean, you dress nice, kind of business attire, but we definitely want people to come as you are. This is a grassroots movement, this is for every single person. So if you feel like you look nice, you know, I would say probably don't wear a swear word on your shirt for sure, but I think come as you are. Know that you're going to be speaking to your representatives. You're going to be in the Capitol building. How do you want to be? How can I get a good picture of you on the Capitol steps there? I think that's all important to feel comfortable and feel like you look good. I think that's how I would say to dress.
Absolutely. And if you have a FairVote Washington t-shirt, this is a great opportunity to bust that bad boy out and
Oh, yeah.
wear it loud and proud. We will also
Mhm.
have them for sale. So feel free to come down and make a donation of your choosing and
Mhm.
wear our shirts.
Mhm.
Let's see. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of transportation type questions, and which we are actually a little bit over time. Apparently, I had more to say than I thought I did. There's some really great questions in here about train schedules and bus schedules and when we should arrive and things like that. I want to let you all know that we will address these questions in the next email going to everyone who has signed up for Lobby Day on Monday. And next Wednesday, January 29th, we also have an opportunity for an Ask Me Anything question. And these types of questions are exactly what we're hoping to answer then. Please feel free to email us in the meantime or give us a buzz. They're all really good logistical questions. Oh man.
Yeah.
You guys,
Call
these are such good
call
questions.
anytime. You probably have gotten some phone calls from me. So, that 509 number, just shoot me a text, give me a call with any of these questions. I'm happy to answer them too.
Thank you so much. And Natalie, I know I had promised that you would get to ask our favorite question. So please go ahead.
Our favorite question?
Our favorite question.
What about ranked choice
What
voting?
about involving your friends in ranked choice voting?
Yeah. Oh, that favorite question. Yeah. Yeah. What the favorite question is, have you invited any of your friends to
Yeah,
join us
sorry,
on
I
Lobby
could have
Day?
set you up a little bit better for
Yeah.
that. Natalie,
That's
how do you involve your friends in
yeah.
ranked choice voting advocacy?
Mhm. Yeah. So that's a big part of this is like growing our community, people from all walks of life. You don't have to be, an expert in ranked choice voting to understand that it is, better for our democracy. And you don't have to be an expert in ranked choice voting to come join us, in Olympia for a great day, hanging out with people who want to make the world a better place. So I'd really encourage you, if you haven't, ask some friends, shoot them a text, say, hey, do you want to join me Wednesday, February 5th? I'm going to be in Olympia. Come for the day with me. We'll get to talk to legislators. Just sign up on this link. It's there. I'm sure some of y'all have some friends that are real democracy defenders and dreamers, and those are the people we want there. Of course, everyone's super civically engaged, but some folks want that personal connection. Invite those friends too. They're very welcome, and I think they'll be very glad that they came. I know they will be.
Also a really great day if you have a friend who lives somewhere else in the state and you're having a hard time scheduling time with each other, meet up at Lobby Day because
There
what
we
a fun
go.
reunion. What a
And I
fun
have heard,
reunion.
yeah, the food in Olympia, I have heard from our supporters in Olympia is very good. So you'll definitely get a good lunchtime out of it.
It is so true. It is so true. Thank you so much, Natalie. Thank you for all your work. Natalie has been working around the clock with our volunteers to achieve these amazing numbers of having 36 legislative districts represented,
Represented.
and we're up to almost 150 signups. So join us. It's going to be fun. Thank you so much.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you.
And finally, I want to bring Elise back on. Elise, you are our bookend
Mhm.
for this program, but thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Natalie, for all the work you've done to bring this lobby day together. I think it's going to be a great event. And as I look at those numbers of RSVPs ticking up and the number of friends we have in the legislature and among our partners growing, and at the active engagement here tonight, and that I've come to expect really from FairVote Washington supporters, it really does remind me that this is where we are growing and practicing that hope. And I want to thank you all for being so involved in FairVote Washington, and to remind you that one way you can do that to support the resources that have been invested in our lobby day and the great organizers you've been hearing from tonight and who are calling you around the clock to make lobby day happen is to become a monthly donor with FairVote Washington. If you're able to invest just $10 a month, it helps us continue our work of reaching everyone we need to reach to grow our movement. And you are really the people that we look to provide us with that hope and to make democracy itself an active word here in Washington. So thank you all for being on our team, and thank you again for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Elise, and thank you so much, everyone. Again, there's some really great questions in the chat. We're going to do our best to answer those through email. And next Wednesday at our Ask Me Anything, it'll be the same time, 6 to 7 p.m., but on Wednesday. Please come and please sign up for Lobby Day if you haven't already, and please bring your friends. It is a great time. All right, and with that, I'll give you back the rest of your Tuesday night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Take good care.